right, guys, so we are going to come to the mat and we're going to be starting off kneeling to begin with. And if you don't like being on your knees, you could always start standing as well if it's just uncomfortable. So we're going to start in this kneeling position. I want you to really tuck your tailbone and we're going to open through the front of the hips. If you want some more stability, you could bring your feet together so your heels are touching at the back. I like that connection of the foot coming together at the back. That allows me to kind of tuck the tailbone a little bit, lift up through the pelvic floor, up through those lower abdominals as I draw and zip up. And I'm going to reach up nice and long overhead, stretch long towards the ceiling. And then on that exhale, I'm going to tuck and curl, curling and rolling forward, really squeezing my glutes as I start to curl because I don't want to sit back to my heels. I really want to try to keep that forward curl of the hips and then begin to curl down, feeling that stretch through the quads, hands to the mat, and then walking the hands out, coming to this kind of more tabletop position. And then I'm going to lift head, neck, chest, lifting the chest up, arching the back, and then head drops. Rounding through the shoulders, tucking the tailbone. Now feeling the hamstrings activate as I slowly start to walk my hands back, curling up, restacking, all the way up, reaching tall, reaching long. And if you're doing this from a standing position, when you start to curl down, you could always walk out to that center plank position since you're not on your knees, or just drop down to your knees if you're feeling comfortable for being in quadruped for just a moment. And we're going to go into extension, reaching up. We're really going to open and move the spine. Tucking and curling that tailbone. Walking the hands back. And then activate the back of the legs, the glutes, and start to zip up, trying to keep the hips stacked over the knees, reaching up nice and tall. Let's interlace the fingers. Pointer fingers reaching straight up for the ceiling, and we're going to inhale to stretch up and over to the right, and exhale back to center. Reaching up and over to the left, and back to center. We're opening and stretching along the rib cage, so I'm not kicking my hip out to the side. I'm lengthening up through the torso, up out of the waistline, to the left, and then back to center. Re-engage the hips to tuck the tailbone. One more right. Reaching up, one more left. And back to center. We're going to walk out to our quadruped position. Hands are going to be right underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. It's a little tighter than you think it is. Drawing the shoulders down. We're going to work our cat stretch in the Pilates world. It's a little different than cat-cow from the yoga world. So I'm going to really segment my spine. On my exhale, I'm going to tuck my tailbone, rounding just my hips and low back. Upper back is flat and strong. And then I articulate back to neutral, keeping my hips level to the mat and parallel to the mat. On my next inhale, head, neck, chest, lift for that thoracic extension, that extension from the bra line, and then back to neutral, long through the spine. Shoulders pack back and down. We tuck the tailbone. Tucking and curling. Tailbone tucks under. We draw the abs in. We're in that nice hollow position. and then we articulate back to neutral. Inhale, lifting the chest. Now as I lift the chest, the belly doesn't sag towards the floor. Ribs knit in, navel to spine, midline's tight. And reset. Back to neutral. One more. Exhale, tailbone tucks. Rounding through the low back, squeezing those underarms down. We articulate back to neutral. Ribs and abdominals knit in. And inhale to extend. Back to your center line. We're going to sit back towards the heels, stretching and resting back in that child's pose. Reaching nice and long out over your mat. Feel that oppositional stretch as you send your hands, the crown of your head towards one end of the mat, and your spine and your tailbone towards your toes and the back end of your mat. Feel that stretch, that lengthening through the spine as you draw the ribs in, pull the abdominals to your center line, draw navel to spine, and curl and roll up. Restacking. Articulate all the way back up. Reaching up nice and long, nice and tall. We inhale, stretch right, and exhale back. Be mindful of that rib cage flare. Inhale left, and back to center. We're going to come to a seated position with our left leg straight and our right foot drawn in towards our inner thigh here, pulling those toes back towards the shin and the feet. And you can do this from a flat back position. We're going to stretch along that posterior chain of the leg. So lower leg, upper leg into the glute. So you can keep a neutral spine and hinge at the hip to keep the stretch solely in the leg. So you're firing those back extensors. You're drawing the abdominals in nice and deep. And if you want to add that round back, dropping and curling, rounding and rolling over the leg, bringing the hands towards the feet if you can reach. Drawing the ankle into dorsiflexion. So it's not just about the toes. Try not to overbend across the top of the foot. Find that mobility in the ankle as you stretch over the leg. And now I'm going to take my whole leg and I'm going to internally rotate it. So I'm working from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock if I was on a clock face, and then back to 12 and out to 10. And as I'm working this rotation, it's about the leg rotating in the hip. It's not about just the foot or just about, we don't want to rotate through the knee. We want the whole leg to rotate over to 2, back to 12, and out to 10. Like a windshield wiper, but the whole leg is moving. So the knee stays lined up with the second and third toe. And we sweep through. Last one out to that 10 o'clock position. Back to center. Curl and restack. And again, you could do that from a round back or a flat back position, and we'll change legs. We'll go right leg forward, left leg draws in, and we're going to sit tall. Again, I'm working my mobility in my ankle joint to draw the whole foot back, not just the toes. So I get that extra stretch through the calf, through the soleus, and along that chain all the way up towards the hip. And if you want to add that round back, we're going to tuck and curl, round over the leg, reaching long, grabbing that foot, drawing the toes back, stretching through the leg, and breathing into that stretch. We'll go for a couple more breaths before we start working that internal, external rotation. And when you're ready, we're going to take our right foot, we're going to internally rotate to 10 o'clock on that clock face. And then back to 12. Shoulders slide down, we rotate out to 2 o'clock. Try to keep even weight through the hips as you rotate and twist the leg in the hip, making sure that the whole line is moving as one unit. And if you can reach your foot, it's nice to keep your hands on your feet because that'll prevent your foot from inverting or everting out of position. So you keep that nice clean line. Weight the hips as you go left and as you go right. One more each side. This is very similar to our hamstring tendon 2 stretch, which you can do standing or seated as well. And then we're going to curl. Tuck and curl, restack, sitting nice and long, nice and tall. We'll bring our feet together, legs together. And we're going to work a little bit of our roll up. For those of you that don't want to articulate, we're going to work our hip hinge. So you're going to inhale, hinge back, flat back, proud chest, moving from the hip, and then exhale to sit tall. Again, for my folks keeping a neutral spine, we hinge and exhale up. To add that articulation, we're going to sink into that C curve, really getting hollow through the hips, through the low backs, and we're going to curl and roll back. Trying to roll back segment by segment, vertebra by vertebra, all the way through without the feet lifting. If the feet lift, you pause and then work your way back up. If you can keep the feet down, curl all the way back. Arms flow overhead, drop the rib cage, and inhale, lift the chest. Exhale, draw the abs in deeper. Tuck and curl. Rounding the spine, working that C curve until your shoulders are over the hips. And curling back again. Nice and smooth. Curling and rolling, taking your time with the flow of the spine down towards the mat. Drawing the rib cage in, reaching long overhead. And inhale, head, neck, chest lifts. Exhale to scoop. Anchor the legs. Curling and rolling. C curve over the hip. Once the shoulders are in that line, then we can sit tall and extend. We're going to take our feet, our legs, mat width apart. Sitting up nice and tall on our sit bones. We're in that flexed ankle position. And for those of you working that neutral spine, you're going to hinge forward now. And then restack, keeping that nice flat back, hinging forward. You could also use your hands to support you as you hinge at the hip and bending the elbows to come back, which is nice because it also adds a bit of that stretch to the front of the shoulder. Hinging forward and bending the elbows, sitting tall as you come back. To add the articulations, we're going to drop our chin towards our chest and then roll as if we're rolling off of that wall behind us, curling and rolling forward. Drawing the abdominals up and deeper into the back, sliding those shoulders down, lengthening the neck. Feel free to reach for your legs or your toes to deepen that stretch and to help set the shoulders and lengthen more. And on your next exhale, we'll restack. Segment by segment, vertebra by vertebra, sitting up nice and tall, nice and long. Chin to chest, folding forward, peeling your spine down off of that wall, reaching out long through the legs, sliding and gliding those shoulders down. Lengthen the spine as you stretch the legs, weighting the hips, and curl and restack. Really working that movement of the abdominals up and pulling up under the rib cage for this last one. Working that hollowing position, drawing your core to your back deeper. And extend the spine, lengthen the spine. Stretch along the spine as the crown of the head gets pulled forward longer towards the feet. And slow to restack. Sitting up nice and tall, nice and long. We're going to bend our knees, place our feet flat on our mat, and we're going to curl and roll down to the floor. All the way down, setting ourselves nice and strong down on the mat. Arms are long down at our side. Pull the heels back just a little bit more towards the sit bones and extend the arms. We're going to work into our shoulder bridge. So keeping our neutral position through our low back, hamstrings, glutes, and core activate, and we lift the hips, sending the knees forward towards the toes, pausing for that breath at the top, and then slow to lower down. And we've opened up and stretched the ankle joint, so we've got that mobility now to be able to send the knees forward. So we have to articulate at the ankle joint to really allow the leg to move towards the foot. Pausing for that breath at the top, and slow to reset. Keeping the rib cage knitted in. Reset the arms and the shoulders every rep or two just to make sure they do tend to lift up as we lower down if we're not able to really keep that connection. You could add a small pillow or a rolled up towel or a block between the knees, or even a Pilates ring to help engage the inner thigh. And we're going to go for one more. Sending those knees forward as the hips lift. You can always scale the height of the hips, that lift in the hips. Strong through the back of the shoulders. And slow to lower down. Resetting the shoulders. Neck is nice and long. Drawing the ribs and the abdominals in. We're going to float that right leg to tabletop, drawing our navel to our spine. We're tightening the abdominals as if someone's sitting or standing on our stomach, and we're inhaling to extend that right leg and exhale to pull it back. As the leg travels forward, the hips stay anchored. We're not allowing the hip to rock forward, and slow to pull it back. Inhale to extend, and exhale to reset, ensuring that left leg is still hugging in towards the center line. Extending that right leg long. We're going to exhale to lift, inhale to lower. We're going to stay in this small space here. Moving the leg smoothly in the hip, keeping our midline tight. Exhale, lift, inhale, lower. Last 3. One more. Bending that knee and placing the foot back to the mat. Reset the shoulders, check your alignment, ribs to hips from side to side. Our left leg floats to tabletop. And inhale to lengthen, sending that leg straighter and longer with each rep. Keeping the hip connected up into the torso so the leg can fully extend from the hip without taking the hip with it. We're hugging that right leg in towards our center line to fully engage the inside of the leg, making sure that the muscles on the outside of the leg and hip are not overworking. Those muscles tighten up, they cause a lot of knee discomfort. We're going to extend that left leg forward nice and long, and we're going to exhale to lift and inhale to lower. We're working once again in this small space, moving the leg smoothly in the hip without the back shifting out of position, drawing the abdominals in deeper each time. And last 2, inhale, lower, exhale, lift, straighter, longer with the last one through the leg. Bending back into tabletop and resetting back to the mat. Interlacing our fingers, we're going to bring our hands back behind the head to support the head and neck. Moving into our chest lifts. If you don't want to fold the mid-ribs, you could go for some tabletop holds here and work on your breath, work on that active engagement of your core instead of working the flexion through the mid-back. Exhale, we fold along the bra line, lifting the head, neck, and chest. We pause for a breath at the top. And then on the next exhale, we curl and roll down. Feet are lightly weighted on the mat. We're working that upper segment of abdominals to help lift the chest up and forward, bringing the neck and the head up out of that gray zone that causes that tension in the neck. And ensuring that we're resting the head back into our hands. Our arms are fully supporting our neck and head. You can come to the top of this chest lift also. If the repetition is changing that tension from your abdominals into your neck, come up and lift. Stay up, stay lifted. Try not to pull on your head and on your neck. Let your head fall back into your hands as you slide those shoulder blades down the back. Holding that chest lift, drawing the abdominals in deeper, navel to spine. You're in your line of sight for your torso and your legs. You can check that alignment, making sure that your hip bones, pubic bone, all are in a nice alignment. The legs are level and straight. 2 more breaths. And slow to lower down. Arms are going to come long overhead. And we're going to send that right leg long. And once again, you can keep the chest lift out of this movement and just move arms and legs. Exhale, leg lifts, chest lifts as the arms lower, and we inhale to open. If you're adding the chest lift, come up and hold. Keep that chest lifted and inhale. Arms and leg move away from that center line. And exhale to bring them back together. Open. As the arms move back by the ears, keeping the chest lifted. Right leg's long and strong. Last one. Bending that right knee, placing the foot back to the mat. And we're going to curl and roll back. Arms are sent overhead. I keep my arms up off the mat to ensure that my rib cage can stay connected and I don't over tighten and throw my mid back into extension. And exhale. Fold and lift. And inhale to lower. Exhale, lift. Even weight across the hips. We're folding at the bra line across the mid-ribs, just under the pecs. Long through the neck as you tuck the chin slightly down towards the collarbone. And we stay up here with the chest lift if you're using this as part of your movement. And inhale to open. Exhale, close. This is a great way to modify our classic double leg stretch. Last one. Bending that knee, placing the foot flat, and we'll curl and roll back. Bring our arms long down by our side, stretching the fingertips towards our heels. Walk the feet back just a little bit, not too much. But I want you to go back to your shoulder bridge if you're maintaining neutral through the spine, or join me for the Pilates pelvic curl for that articulation of the spine. We exhale, tilt back, getting hollow as we scoop the belly, lift the hips, and start to curl and peel up one vertebra at a time. Pausing at the top. And then lead with the rib cage. Hips stay high as you drop down through the ribs first. And then scooping down the opposite direction to curl along the spine all the way through and back to the tailbone. Trying to roll along the spine, segment by segment, each little piece, like a strand of pearls or beads that you're peeling up off of the floor and resetting back to the mat, one bead, one pearl at a time. And one more. Bringing our knees to tabletop position, drawing through the inner thighs. We're going to extend the legs nice and long towards the ceiling. And we're going to make small movements right to left with the legs. But I'm going to keep my hips anchored to the mat. So as you can see, I slide my foot down along the inside. So my legs are splaying to keep my hip anchored to the mat. There's no lift of the hip. So this is a nice way to modify some of those spine twist supine movements, those twisting, to maintain a neutral spine without rotating or twisting the back. We're going to go one more right and one more left. Bending the knees in, we'll go soles of the feet together for our butterfly stretch. You can even add a rotation of the head and the neck. If the neck's tightened up a little bit, if you were getting fatigued through the core during some of our chest lift work. Legs will come back to tabletop and we'll extend the legs straight up for the ceiling. And if you're not going to rotate, you'll go back to that last movement. If you're going to add the rotation, we're going to keep the legs even. As we pick up the left hip, we inhale right, exhale through to center. Inhale, tip left, pick up that right hip, but not the right shoulder. And exhale, center. So this straight leg, spine twist supine, rotating through the mid-ribs to keep the low back in neutral. One more each side. Bending those knees, drawing the knees towards the chest as you slide the shoulders down to stretch. We'll send that left leg long out over the mat. Nice extension here. We'll lengthen that right leg up towards the ceiling. And then we're going to come across our center line, dropping down, circling out and back up and around. These can be small or big circles. I just want you to keep as much stability in your left leg and in your torso as you can. And we reverse direction, out. We cross our midline, circling back up to the top. One more. Bending that right knee, extending that right leg long. We'll draw that left knee in just to allow the front of the right leg to stretch a little bit more. Bringing that left knee to tabletop, extending that leg long, and we cross our center line for these hip circles. Working those nice smooth leg circles. Right side is anchored, and we reverse direction. Bending that knee, placing the foot flat on the mat, leg is long, reaching the arms up overhead. We're going to come up to a seated position, so you can roll up or just sit up. Inhale, arms flow forward, head, neck, chest lifts. We draw the abdominals in deeper, curling up into that C curve, stretching the back, curling and rolling forward, stretching long over the legs. And we're going to come into a lunge stretch to open up the hip and the thigh. So you can do this one kneeling or standing. I'm going to bring my left foot up and forward, pressing my left knee forward over the toes as I send my hips forward and down, keeping my midline tight. Ribs and abdominals knit in, dropping those shoulders, pulling up from the pubic bone, from that origin of the abdominal wall, all the way up to the sternum to intensify that stretch in the right quad, right hip flexor without putting too much pressure on the small of the back. right toes under as you place your hands on either side of that front left foot. And we're going to kick back into this split stance stretch. Pressing that right heel for the floor, extending that left leg long. Breathing into that stretch. Try to draw the shoulders away from the neck and the ears some more. And we're going to bend that left knee. Place your hands flat if you can. And step back into that plank position here. Holding into that plank, strong through the upper back. Breathing into that plank. Stretch the spine long. Send the heels back and down towards the mat behind you. As you pull to the inner thighs, activate those glutes. Draw the ribs and the abs up and in. And we're going to go hips high, like we would for downward dog in yoga. Glide those shoulders back and down, away from the neck, away from the ears. And as we come forward, we're going to step forward with that right foot. So we can go into that lunge stretch. Left knee is down, right foot is forward. Dropping those hips forward and down. Again, reconnect from the pubic bone. We're going to zip up from the pubic bone all the way up. Belly button draws in, rib cage draws in, and we're stretching forward and down. Breathing into that stretch. We're going to place our hands to the floor, curl that back left foot, toes under so we can kick back into that split stance stretch. Sliding those shoulders down, pressing that left heel down for the floor. Breathing into that stretch. We're going to bend that right knee. Hands are flat, and we're going to step back into our plank. Adjust as needed. Flat and strong through the back of the shoulders. You could also drop down into your plank to your knees or to your forearms. You can stay in this center plank in the position that works best for you. But we're going to add some movement for a little bit more challenge for those that want to join in. We're going to drop down to the forearm and walk it back up. Alternating the arms. So now I drop left arm first and then right. Up with the right, up with the left. We're going to go one more each side. And now I'm going to stay on my forearms. Hips are going to go high. I'm going to stretch through the chest and back to plank. Back to my stretch and forward out to plank. Reaching those hips high and back out to plank. We'll go for one more. Reaching up. Stretching through the chest, coming through, and left hand down, pushing back up into that plank. Drop the knees, send the hips back over the heels, stretching long through the spine into child's pose. Breathing into that stretch. Getting as low as you want. If you don't like being on your knees, you could go into a downward dog position to stretch. One more breath. And we're going to restack. Curl and restack the spine. Each little piece, segment by segment, reaching all the way up. Fingers interlace, index fingers point towards the ceiling, and we're going to inhale to hinge to the right. And exhale back. Reach up and hinge to the left. And exhale back. One more right. And one more left. Coming through to center, we're going to curl and roll forward, rolling down, walking our hands out to our quadruped position once again, making sure that the wrist is right underneath the shoulder, knees are underneath our hips. I'm going to curl my toes under so I can pop my knees up for these knee hovers. So I'm here with my shin parallel to the mat. In these knee hovers, flat through the back, that tabletop position through the back. Ribs are tight as I draw the underarms down. And now I'm going to stretch. I'm going to send my hips high. Try to flatten the feet towards the floor. Drop those shoulders down. So this is a tighter version of downward dog. We're much closer together with arms and legs. And curl forward. Flatten the back. Float the knees. And breathing into that ab hold. Hinging back to stretch once again. Slide those shoulders down, lengthen the neck. And one more knee tuck. Hovering those knees. Slide those shoulders down. Find that alignment. Focus on your breath. One more breath. Knees come down. We're going to bring our heels together, rounding through the back, curling up, walking the hands back towards the knees and the thighs, tucking that tailbone, keeping the feet connected to the floor, hips are pressing forward. We're tucking and curling. Feel that stretch, that tension. Rise from the knees all the way up. Reach up nice and long, nice and tall. Stretch for the ceiling. Lift the chest up. And arms lower down. All right, guys, nice work today. Great job.